Hello Summoners and welcome back to another episode of OP Patch Predictions. My name is Nathan Ng and today we'll be talking about some of the changes coming on patch 11.7 and how they may change or fail to change the state of the game. We'll be starting things off by looking at the significant buffs that we're going to be seeing on the change list. The biggest change that we're seeing is a huge touch up to Yorick. Champions that you mark with E will now constantly awaken your passive Graves for the duration of the debuff, adding an Alawi-esque mechanic. Ghouls that launch at an opponent marked by your E also deal an attack when they leap. These changes make hitting E much more rewarding, especially in the times where you don't really have the ghouls active. This gives you more room for laning in those tougher matchups where you can't just run at your opponent and whack him with your shovel, and allows you to punish your opponents harder in matchups that you would have won before. Honestly, I do ship Yorick and Graves because, you know, Yorick kind of digs Graves. They're the champion. Sorry, that was a bad joke. Even before these buffs, I think Yorick has been a pretty solid, albeit niche pick. Yorick combines being a juggernaut with being a champion that fights with pets. While this makes him super strong when fully utilized properly, it also makes him hard to pick up and learn, and as a result, he's consistently one of the least popular champions in the game. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What champion do you think has been OP but has been slept on for a while? For me, I'm gonna have to actually go with Heimerdinger. He's consistently above 53% win rate in all three lanes, yet this pick remains under 2% overall. He has insane pushing power, hard-hitting poke, strong disengage, huge teamfight CC and damage, and he's pretty much immune to being dove in teamfights. Well, and also to top it all off, he can be flexed as a carry in 3 different roles. But hey, that's just me. We want to hear from you. So be sure to let us know your answers in the comments down below. Now back to these Yorick changes. The last 2 changes are to Yorick's tower aggro logic. Although it's been mentioned on Twitter by Riot Captain Gameplay that these changes will likely not be ready by the time the patch goes live. The first of these makes it so that when your ghouls attack the enemy champions under their tower, they'll pick up tower aggro instead of you. While this may not seem like that big of a deal, you'd be surprised how many players take unnecessary tower shots when their pets go for the lane opponent as they're autoing the tower. While it isn't specified if they hold aggro until they die or not, if that's the case, you'll always be able to attack your opponent a couple of times before the Mistwalker dies, which is huge for you when you're bullying a side lane opponent whose only option is to sit under tower and clear waves. The second change we're seeing to tower aggro has to do with his ultimate. Towers now prioritize Maiden of Mist last. And since you'll be able to hammer away at the turret instead of juggling turret aggro off your Maiden by walking her all the way out of its range, you'll take towers much faster than before, preserving the HP bar of the Maiden when it comes time to fight your opponents. Even with these last couple of changes being delayed, the ones that are for sure shipping this patch should be bumping Yorick's strength as an oppressive top laner. Since it's not uncommon for solo queue players to lack teamwork and communication, 2 playstyles that do very well in lower elos are lane bullies, who snowball out of control when not shut down early, and split pushers who consistently take towers against teams that lack coordination to stop them. With Yorick falling into both of these categories, he's sure to be a strong pick this patch by those that recognize his strengths and only know how to use them properly. He's gonna be strong, at least against the comps that don't have the tools to deal with what he brings to the table. Now let's take a look at Braum. The lower cooldown on E means that you can shield your allies even more, which is huge when you're paired with an immobile carry such as Jinx that can dish out insane damage as long as you protect them from danger. Last patch buffed his ultimate by lowering his cooldown, but this time around they're actually buffing the knockup duration to 2 full seconds on the first target hit. This means that your disengage and catch potential are much higher. Braum pairs super nicely with some of the meta ADCs, notably Jinx and Vayne. So you can go ahead and consider this an indirect buff to them, especially when you play bot lane with the duo. Also, he's insane with Lucian. That with the nerfs that we've seen on many other supports on patch 11.7 and the other previous patches make Braum seem like a very powerful pick. I'd say that he's a safe blind pick as long as you throw out a ban for Morgana. Playing some champions is pretty simple. On Blitz, you hook out of position opponents. As Annie, you flash and burst down the carries. And as Z, you pray that your team doesn't feed as you AFK farm and hope to pop off in team fights. But with other champions, there's a lot more decision making involved. With Braum, you have the option to W and E to protect your teammate or W forward and look to catch an enemy off with your Q. It can be hard to know whether you're supposed to be playing aggressively, defensively, or somewhere in between. In laning phase, making the wrong choice may result in a lost kill and a tower plate or 2, but in teamfights, a similar mistake can result in you losing the game altogether. Thankfully, we've got the tools to help. With the ProGuides subscription, you get full access to all of our courses, unlimited chats with the top tier coaches, and if you book a session, you'll be able to get it at a discounted rate. With all these resources, you'll not only be able to minimize your own mistakes, but you'll even learn some ways to help cover when your teammates are the ones messing up. And there is no better time than now to pick up a sub because we're running a sale. Head over onto ProGuides.com and use the discount code RANKUP2021 for 20% off yours today. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the video. Perhaps the most out-of-place champ in this entire list is Kindred. While she has about a 47% win rate on patch 11.6 when you're looking at all the elos, when focusing on Plat Plus, it goes up to 49%, and in Diamond Plus, it goes up even further to 51%. One thing to keep in mind is how nuanced all of this is. 51% does not mean Kindred performs consistently slightly average. Being a marksman whose sole focus is on doing damage, she's a very feast or famine champ. Get fed and pick up a lot of passive stacks and you can hard carry games, but when you're behind, she's useless as any other feeding champ. Playing her well means knowing all the targets that you can most likely kill for your marks, which mark camps that you can contest versus which ones to give up, and how to path with all of that in mind. On top of the decision-making part of things, her being a squishy ADC means that you'll have to get the mechanics to dodge threats while maximizing your damage output. So with all that being said, this is how things are going to pan out with these changes. If you don't know how to play Kindred properly before, these changes aren't going to magically help you get more stacks, and you aren't going to be doing much better now. But if you're already good at playing her, you'll be getting leads easier and using those leads to carry even harder. So in the right hands, she's definitely going to be a pretty OP pick. The other champ buffs on the list are nice touches, but they overall don't change too much. The champions receiving them will be better when they're already good, and won't suddenly become more playable in bad matchups. There were only 6 item changes listed for this patch, with 4 of those being basically minor adjustments, pushing stats around and changing item costs. The other 2 changes carry a lot more weight with them. Everfrost is taking a huge hit, making it much less of a build on every champion type of item, and more about being built on champions that need it for effective comboing. The more interesting change that we're seeing is one that's so overdue that it probably should have happened in preseason. Trinity Force is gaining 5 AD at the cost of 5 attack speed, and the mythic passive is being changed from 10% attack speed to 3 AD, 3 movement speed, and 3 ability haste. These may seem like a simple stat adjustment, but think about the bruisers that would normally build this item. Most, if not all of them, like Irelia, would probably prefer AD, MS, and haste over the attack speed that it currently gives. On top of those changes, there's one more big change to the item. Currently, Trinity Force's passive only stacks against champions, but on patch 11.7, it'll also stack when you're auto-attacking towers. Since most bruisers are most at home in the side lane, that 30% increase in base damage will definitely be a welcome buff to help you knock out towers fast. While Stridebreaker and Gore Drinker will still be very strong items to fill a certain niche, I think that Trinity Force will now take the slot as the go-to standard cookie-cutter mythic for bruisers who want to go for that split-pushing build. So far, everything that we covered has to do with the newly buffed and OP, but now let's talk a bit about what's staying the same. Many of the nerfs that we're seeing on this patch are trivial. Udyr, for example, gets the most out of his jungle clear strength and damage in fights from Phoenix stance, and he'll be either remaining in the OP tier or at worst going down to the S tier. Hecarim will be just as powerful, and will possibly be even stronger when you opt out for a carry build with the newly buffed Trinity Force being a much better item on him now, since he already barely used all that extra attack speed. Thresh is another champion that we don't expect to see go anywhere. Personally, when I think what makes Thresh so annoying to play against, the first thing I think about is how much CC that he provides. It seems impossible to run away from Thresh and dive past him because of his hooks, his flay interrupting the engages and escapes, and his ultimate's 99% slow. On top of that, Thresh's Lantern is a get out of jail free card. So if your ADC doesn't even have flash, they can get out of Jarvan's ultimate with just that one skill. So with just a small bit of a shield getting taken away, nothing is going to change until they realize that the only way to nerf Thresh is to increase his cooldowns, specifically on his flay and lantern. The last champ in this section to talk about is Ivern. With a decent amount of ability haste and the shielding amplification from support items, you're losing around 25 HP in shields for every 4 or so seconds. In the grand scheme of things, that's not enough to knock Ivern down as one of the best utility picks in the game. This shield still has a strong 80% AP ratio and slows the opponents, and you still have your Q for making picks or peeling and Daisy to add further disruption. All of this, along with Ivern being an avid abuser of the Moonstaff, means that he will remain an OP pick when the best thing that you can do for an already strong team comp is pick a support to tie it all together. And that about wraps up everything for our OP patch predictions 11.7 edition. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to sub so you never miss out on any content such as this. Remember to let us know what champion you think has been sleeper OP for quite a while now in the comments down below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can discuss League further or just hang out and be a part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, and until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.